Good morning. Happy Monday. Hope and trust everybody's had a great weekend and off to a great start this week. I'm out here on my front porch, middle of December, watching it rain. A little nasty day. They say it's kind of a wintry mix coming through, but they're saying a lot of cold's coming through. So don't know how much longer I'm going to be out here on this front porch. Anyway, I'm out here with my espresso. Actually, my coffee on my espresso machine. My wife got me an espresso machine recently. I really like the foam on this thing, man. I was in London going on a mission trip to Egypt. Got me one of these in the airport, and it was so good. I got a second one on the flight to Paris, so it was really nice. But anyway, out enjoying my cup of coffee this morning. I'm going to talk to you this morning about a interesting subject. I'm going to take about 4 days talking about this because we're going to kind of look at Jonah's life. And that is the issue of cynicism, spiritual pessimism that I've been guilty of in my life. We all get guilty of in our life when it comes to doing ministry and working with people. I call it the cost of a cold heart, the danger, cynicism. Kind of work through his life here in the next 4 days. But what is cynicism? A definition of cynicism, I've got my journal here, a distrustful attitude toward people's motives or God's purpose. We don't know people's motives. We try to guess people's motives. We think we can guess people's motives and almost convince ourselves that's what that person's motives are when they're not. And that is how the devil works. We could also have the same attitude toward God's purpose. We tried that, it's not going to work. See, cynicism, it assumes the worst, it doubts the good, and it resents grace. See, when our faith grows cold and our heart becomes hard toward what God is doing in others, in the church, even in ourselves, that's cynicism. That's spiritual pessimism. Let's talk about the first one here this morning, how cynicism distrusts God's wisdom. Jonah chapter 1, verses 1, 2, and 3, the word of the Lord came to Jonah saying, "Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me." But notice in verse 3, Jonah, he flees to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He goes down to Joppa and finds a ship going to Tarshish. He's supposed to go to Nineveh in Assyria. But he winds up going toward Tarshish in Spain across the other direction of the Mediterranean Sea. So he pays the fare and he goes down to it and he goes with them to Tarshish away from the presence of the Lord. God is working in a place, God is calling you to a place, but you don't like what God is doing and you do what you want to do and you go the opposite direction. Man, what a great thought about attitude. There's a lot of other applications you can make from this, but for the purpose of this devotional, let's talk about cynicism. Cynicism distrusts God's wisdom in this aspect that Jonah didn't believe God's plan. He didn't believe it made sense to him. Why in the world do go to our enemies, to Nineveh? You know what they've done to the Jewish people? You know what they've done to Israel? He ran. He's a prophet of God to speak God's judgment, to speak God's solution. He thought his way was better than God's. You know, we have that situation in our lives when cynicism shows up because in the church, in our lives, cynicism, spiritual pessimism shows up when we say, that'll never work. We've tried that before. God can't use them. It kills faith before faith even has a chance to move. You don't even give it a chance. This type of thought can keep a church and a believer stuck. You can get stuck in fear. At the end of the day, Jonah was afraid. Stuck in fear instead of stepping forward in faith. So what's the antidote to this? When we are distrusting God's wisdom, when we think that God's way is completely crazy. God, why do you got me here? But listen, where you're at today and what God's calling you to do is no accident. God's got you here for a season, for a reason, and there's no accident. So here's the antidote. The antidote is this. Trust the heart of God, even when you don't understand his methods. Because in Isaiah 55, 8 and 9, it says, his ways and his thoughts are higher than ours. Trust the Creator, not the creation. Trust him. He got you this far. Why do we fail to trust him now? See, cynicism, spiritual pessimism in Jonah's life, he went the opposite direction. And God had to take care of that attitude in his life. May we be mindful in our lives when it comes to cynicism, cynical hearts, when we say, hey, it won't work. We tried it before, and God's calling us to do something, to step out of our comfort zone, to do something greater. Don't go the opposite direction. Trust him even when you don't understand. What a lesson there. Have a great Monday. We'll pick back up on this tomorrow.